Now, many of you know that last week the SA Reserve Bank came out and paused or halt interest rate hikes, which was something that brought a lot of relief into the SA consumers. But as much as last week, yes, we saw a relief, we might, or something that me and you can definitely agree, is that interest rates in South Africa are still very high. I mean, according to the latest stats, it looks like consumers are failing to, of course, meet or pay their monthly repayments on the loans they have, on the mortgages or home loans, car loans which they have, which it is causing a similar screen, even some of the motorists to end up downgrading their cars. This is something that shows you that, of course, consumers are struggling regardless of the rate pause or interest rate pause, regardless of us seeing some of the economic figures improving. Consumers are still struggling in quite a number of ways, which is why we are seeing, of course, some of them also showing, or some of the figures showing in retail sales, which has been on a decline. This is something that shows that retail sales, or people are not spending as much as they used to spend on retails. This is something that, of course, it is not good, something that shows us that though we are getting a recovery on both the inflation, which is currently sitting at 5.4%, which is between the 3 and 6%, which the SA Reserve Bank is targeting, things are just still so expensive for consumers, which is why we are having a latest stats that says that 3 out of 4 consumers are having to struggle with, of course, getting their money to carry them throughout the whole month. We are seeing, of course, consumers are struggling to, of course, survive with the salaries they get, survive with the monies they make on a monthly basis, which is why, or which is one thing that shows you once again that consumers are struggling. Now, all these, ladies and gents, they have a huge impact into the stock markets, because if consumers are not spending as much as they used to in the companies that we invest in locally or that are trading in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, it means that those companies that we buy are not going to generate as much revenue as they used to, because of the consumer spending is going down. Retailers are not spending as they used to, which just shows you that, of course, things are not looking good even for the companies that we invest in. This is something that, of course, like I said, though we are seeing, of course, inflation coming down, and of course the SA Reserve Bank pausing rate hikes last week, this still shows, or statistics still shows, that SA consumers are still struggling, which means that even the companies that we invest in locally are going up. Chances are very high that they are still gonna struggle with revenue, or getting the revenue back to where it was before we started having a problem of high inflation. Now, before we dig deep into this video, you already know that this video is just an entertainment video and not a professional financial advice video. Now, I would really appreciate if you can just hit the like button if you are enjoying the content that I'm giving you about what the current statistics or what the current data is showing, and how that it is tallying, or how that it is tying in with our economy, which ties in, of course, to the companies we invest in the stock market. If so, even if you're not investing in stocks, you'll find that some of these kind of news, some of the developments I give here, they will help you to try and see where we are as a country in terms of recovery. Because trust me, or believe you me, even if you're not investing in stocks, high inflation, it is affecting everyone, or almost everyone in SA. High interest rate hikes, or interest rate hikes that we've been seeing from the SA Reserve Banks, are having a huge impact into consumers like you and me, because we are having to pay out a lot of money, or more money than what we used to, because interest rates are now very high. So these kind of news affect not only those that are investing in stocks, but also the day-to-day consumer who don't probably invest into stocks. So if this is your kind of niche, or this is the kind of news you would want to hear, make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe, and once you subscribe, don't forget to hit or click that notification bell so that at least you get notified by YouTube every time I drop a new content. So yes, without wasting any more of your time, statistics is showing that consumers in general are really struggling, of course, to pay their bills due to, of course, high inflation and interest rate hikes. Consumers are not able to finish the entire month with the salary they get, or with the money they receive on the monthly basis, which again, that shows you that consumers are really struggling, of course, to put ends meet, which is why the retail sales are decreasing. Like I said, it is, of course, meaning that the money that consumers used to spend 2 years ago, they are not spending that money due to the fact that some of the things are still probably expensive. Yes, inflation is coming down, or the cost of living in South Africa is coming down. It's now at 5.4%, but things, or some of the things, are still quite high. And the interest rate, on the other hand, it is still very high, though we did not get a rate hike last week. I mean, as a consumer right now, the best interest that you can get when going to financial institutions is currently around 11.75%. And if you have a look at where this figure was 2 years ago, you will understand why a lot of consumers are returning their cars. A lot of consumers, they are having to sell their houses because they can't afford, because 2 years ago, interest rates were currently sitting at 7.25%, or there was a point in time where we saw interest rates at 7.25%, meaning that probably a 1 million rand house in South Africa, you would pay roughly an installment of around 7,500. It just shows you that, of course, you find that the houses that you used to afford 2 years ago, you now cannot afford those very same houses, which is something that, of course, it is resulting in some of the consumers, of course, having to sell their house, having to sell their cars. These result into low demand into these kind of products or services that, of course, we see companies offer to consumers, which is something that is not good, because that means that those companies then won't generate as much revenue as they used to, won't make as much money as they used to, which is something that, of course, until we get everything completely stabilized, we are going to then get, of course, a recovery, and that is when we'll see a recovery coming from, of course, the companies we invest in. But it is not all the companies. I think I must say there are some companies that are still doing well, I mean, regardless of the current economic conditions, but majority of the companies, they are struggling due to the current economic environment we are in, which is something that, of course, once, of course, the economic conditions improve, we are going to see, of course, companies improving. Otherwise, with all that, guys, I make tons and tons of stock market investing videos. If you think that this video was helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Once you subscribe, don't forget to hit or click that notification bell so that at least YouTube can notify you every time I drop a similar content to this that I just shared now. So if you enjoy this video, I'll also appreciate, because it helps with YouTube's algorithm. Otherwise, that's all from me, and I hope that our economy recovers. I hope that inflation continues dropping, and I hope that very soon we get to see the SA Reserve Bank starting to cut interest rates, because, ladies and gents, these interest rates, though we received a rate pause last week, they are still very high, making it difficult for consumers to afford their home loans, car loans, credit card loans, and all the other loans which are tied to, of course, the current interest rate. So otherwise, that's all from me, and God bless you all.